HTML lists and tables. Now, up to now we've been formatting by using line breaks, and that's been giving us more lines. But at this point, HTML lists and tables are the way we're going to put things on the page in a certain formatted order, and the tables allow us to do better placement. So those are the methods we're going to use. The first type of list is an unordered list, and there are two types of list, ordered and unordered. Unordered list is bulleted, it's not numbered. The items on this slide are an unordered list. You can see the bullets, the little circular dots on the left-hand side. You can put a list inside of a list, and this gives you what you call nested lists. To have an unordered list, you must have a begin tag and UL for unordered list, and you must also have an end tag at the end of your unordered list. The items you wish to have in your list are between these tags, and they have tags in front of them as well. You can make the whole list be one certain type of bullet out in front. They've got the disk, which is the solid black dot, and that's default. That'll happen automatically. You don't have to put that in. A circle or a square. Now, I've shown you outline circle and outline square, but I've noticed on some of the browsers, and I think this has changed, we now get solid items for some of these. The way you do this is inside the UL tag, just right after the L, right up here, right in this area here, you're going to place the word type equals quotes and then one of these words precisely. You don't have to capitalize them. Okay? Alright, so inside, between the beginning tag and the end tag of the unordered list, you have list items. A list item with a tag LI only needs a beginning tag. It does not need an end tag, although you can put one on. You can make each item a different type of bullet in an unordered list, or, as is shown down here, in the ordered list, and we will get to this in a minute, these are the items for the ordered list, these are the ones for the unordered list. I just generally did this because I'm not going to go over the LI in each case. The list item is where you type the items on the list. Every time you have a list item tag, it's a new item, a new bulleted item on the unordered list. The item ends when the next one begins. So that's the easiest way to consider that. Here's an example. We're going to go through a few examples. This is a simple list. You'll notice here I have my begin tag for the unordered list and my end tag. Here are my list items, and I do not have end tags, although I could. This is what it looks like on the web page. You've got your bullets out here, solid by default, and then I've got my items listed as I placed here. So when you want an unordered list, that's the format. Let's take a look at the next one. Here's an example of an unordered nested list. Again, I have my begin tag and my end tag of the list itself. I have my list items for that list. Here's one of them. Here's the other one. The Jones family and the Smith family. But within each of those items, I have created another entire list. There it is with its begin tag and end tag and its items here and here. The same goes down here. Here's what it looks like on the web page. Notice I have open circles now for my second layer. This happens automatically. Another example of an ordered, unordered list, and the main reason I showed you this example was so that you would, an unordered list, yeah. The reason I showed you this example is because I took it in another layer. I nested within a nest, see? And these two items, notice They're solid squares. They're not outlined squares. So it changes. From here on down, however, if you keep nesting, you'll discover it's just solid squares. They don't change much after that. Now we get to our ordered list. Ordered lists are numbered items. And again, you can nest them. This ordered list has a begin tag and an end tag. And this end tag is necessary, just like the unordered list. This is an OL. And likewise, it has a type attribute. And these are the things you put in the type attribute. So you type the word type equals, quote, and then one of these items, quote. And that goes right in there, is where you've put that one. Here's another example of the ordered list this time. We got the begin tag, and we've got the end tag, and the list items. Again, this is a simple list like before. Notice it's numbered 1, 2, 3. Okay? Here is a what you might call a nested ordered list. Here again is my nesting. I've nested this and this under the other list items. Okay? And again, you get it. But look, it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That's by default. It doesn't change in the ordered list like it did in the unordered list for the first few levels. And again, here's another one, and if you notice again, it doesn't change, does it? Right over here on the side, we have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, well, just 1, 2 in this case, all the way down through. So let's put in some attributes to force that change. And here's an example of our attributes. If you take a look here, I haven't used the attributes on the whole list up here. I've merely put them on the sublist. And you can actually put them in these areas here. You can actually put a single element being a different attribute if you wanted to. But it usually works to use a particular attribute for a particular sublist level. And so here, I've got capital letters on this. So you'll notice over here, Betty has a capital A, Jim has the capital B on it. On this level down, under Betty, I used the capital I, which is Roman numerals. There's Roman numeral 1, Roman numeral 2. This level, I put the lowercase I, okay? So here on this level, and of course, Clem and Lem, we can see, have that. There's the lowercase a, and you can see A and B for Bob and Sue. All right, now let's go on to tables. Tables are used to display things in columns and rows, and you can make the lines invisible, meaning you can have a table on your page, but you won't be able to see where the lines are the table. And that's usually used for placement, and that's a great way to place things on your table. Helps you control where items are going. Tables have a begin and end tag. And then everything else goes between it. And the things that go between, you need row tags, you can use header tags or data tags. Header tags and data tags define the columns, and row tags define the rows. And you need to set a row first, and then within the row you set the columns within that row. A lot of attributes. You can align things left, right, or center. You can change the background color of any one of them. The whole table, a single cell, a whole row. You can make the border different colors. You can give the border different sizes. Cell padding and cell spacing are different because one has to do with the size of the border, the spacing between cells, and the other has to do with the padding, the space around data within a cell. You can talk about how frames are set up within this thing, what types they are. You can have rules, row, column, or none. In other words, show lines on particular areas. None would, of course, take them all off. And you can have width again. Let's talk about the table row. You have to have a begin The end tag is optional, but it's a good idea to place it just so you won't get confused. Between the tags, you place all the other stuff. For a row, you can align things, you can set the background color, or you can vertically align within a cell. You can have something at the top of the cell, the middle of the cell, or the bottom of the cell, and that's what V-align is about. There are things called header tags, and this is where you get your columns, your little cells defined. Each cell can be defined, but these cells are special. They're used usually only in the first row to define the headers up there, the cell headings above each column. They're generally set to bold, they're automatically centered. Begin tag, and again the end tag, is optional. These tags that are optional tend to end where the next one begins, but you know, for helping you define these things, it's a good idea to put the end tag in, and then you won't get confused. And then whatever you want displayed in that cell, you put between the begin and end tags. Again, they also have all these things. Align, background color. Now they've got column span and row span, and we use one with rows and one with the tags, the heading tags or the data tags. And this helps you span columns across rows or span rows across columns. They also have the V-align tag. Table data tag, TD. It is not bolded. Has the begin, the end is optional. The data you want to put in a particular cell is displayed between. We're going to get to an example in a few seconds, so you'll be able to see how this works. Again, the same as the heading. Align, background color, column span and row span that we'll get to a little bit later in the examples. That's easier to show in an example. And V-align to allow you to put it at the top, bottom, or middle of the cell. Here come the examples. Let's see how this works. To set up a table, you simply type a beginning tag, end tag, and then most people go ahead and type these two. They'll type table row, and they'll say, okay, that's the first row of my table, and they'll put an end on it, although this is optional. Then they'll set the second row of their table and do that, and then the third row of their table, and then do that. And then they've got all their rows set up, leaving a little space between, and then they can put their table data. Now this stuff is going to be headings, of course, okay? And when I have table data, I don't put them on separate lines. Usually I put them one after the other, and that helps me frame in what's going to be in that cell. Here's what it looks like. Take a look at this. This one has no borders. If you don't tell it what type of borders you want, you will have no borders. So there's 1H, and look right up here, 1H. That's what went in that heading. It's bolded, it's centered, unlike these that are off to the left side. Here's the table data, 1, 1. Okay, first cell, first row. I did this row right here. This is my row. Okay, R. I should have probably done it the other way. Okay, that's the row. Anyways, there's this cell right here. So on and so forth. You see how I set these up? Let's take a look at the next one. Okay, notice what I did here. As soon as you put something in about the border, I set the border to 5 pixels, you can now see a border on this thing over here. That's what it looks like. I didn't change the color or anything, I just set the border up. Same situation. You can change color and size of border. Take a look at the next one. Now we're starting on the table, and I'm using some cell padding. Cell padding is how much space is inside the cell. Take a look. If you look at the last one, they were kind of cramped together. A little closer. Now I have more space right in here all the way around my letters, okay? Inside the cell. More space in here. All right, and that's different from cell spacing, which spaces the individual cells out. Let's go see if we can find an example of that. There we go. Cell spacing now. Notice we have cell spacing. I made cell spacing 10. Look at how big it made this. See? the space between the cells now 10 pixels rather than being next to each other, like a pixel apart. Now I tried a few other fancy things like coloring. I decided to take this cell and color it yellow. So I've got my background color yellow, and I just colored the one cell. Notice over here, I did aqua here and green down here, light green. And you can see where I put these. I put them in the table data or the table header tag. Now we get into something a little tougher. I made padding around these things so we can see it easier. Made the heading yellow, and here we go. I did a whole row this time. By putting it in the row header, I can do the whole row. You can't do the column. Now remember, I only have 3 columns and 3 rows in this table. But look what's happened here. Somehow I ended up with 1, 2, 3, 4, kind of a mess. And that's what can happen if you're not real careful when you're using row and column span. Let's take a look at column span first of all. Column span spanned this thing over across the top of 2 rows. No problem. All I do is I took the cell I wanted to spread over 2 rows, and I put column span and the number of columns I wanted to put it over. So I take my table header, I want to span this 2 columns, it's going to go across 2 columns. So it's going across these 2 columns. Well, that's nice. And everything's fine if that's the only thing I had done. This would be that. But then I went down here and I decided to take this cell, which used to be right here, and I'm going to spread it down into this area right here. So it doesn't cause you to lose data this way, but you've got to do a little patching. So in that table data, which was this one right here, which used to be 1, 1, I decided to row span it across 2 rows. In other words, stretch it down 2 rows. In doing that, what happened? Well, since it was this one, I got row 1 was there, that's that one, pushed down of course. That's fine. This is fine, but look what happened on the next row. This cell, they don't get rid of it, they shove it over because this one's going to take its place in position. And so this whole row has been shoved over. That's a problem. We really didn't want that, did we? Okay? So, we might have to change some things here. This table's kind of a mess. Either I have to add more data to this row to balance it out, or I have to take something out of this row. 9 chances out of 10 it'll be this one. But if I want to balance this thing out, I'm going to have to make some changes. And that's what I show you on the next slide here. There we go. Nice and neat. What I did is I took the 2, 1 out, since the 1, 1 was replacing it. And that worked nicely. And I also took the 3 out because we no longer have 4 columns over there. 2 are over these 2. So I knocked that third one out also. You're going to have to patch your tables if you use row span or column span. It's a nice way to put headings over things, but you've got to watch out what you're doing.